Hi everybody. Kevin Barheit here. Thanks for tuning in. As long as I can remember, I felt of very low value and worth. And much of it stems back to my sense of not being valued by my birth mother. And one of the biggest struggles and the strongest shackles that held me back and held me down over the years was a real misunderstanding or lack of understanding of the difference between abandonment as a child and abandonment as an adult. Through much of my recovery, that sense of abandonment stuck with me. That feeling that I would be left just the way my mother left me at birth, and I would be abandoned by those that I loved, those that I cared for, those that I worked with, friends, family, co-workers would separate themselves from me inevitably, that it would happen, and that I had to face that was my lot in life. This was something that was holding me back. This was putting me in a position where all of my relationships were based on not just a feeling, not just a sense that I was unworthy, but a knowledge that I was unworthy. That a knowing, a deep knowing that every relationship and everything that I connected with and everything I cared about would eventually leave, would abandon me. It was a time when I really started to understand that these feelings I had, that abandonment was inevitable, had made their way up into my sense of knowledge of what was actually a fact in this world. I would be abandoned. And when I started to understand that that was holding me back from everything in life, everything I could even care about, I had to take a stronger look at that and understand what did it mean for me and where did it come from. That meant owning a few facts that were a little tough for me to grapple with. Number one, my mother did put me up for adoption. Number two, that did feel and was a real ripping of the primal connection I had to my birth mother. And number three, that actually began a cycle of really understanding that I was not someone who belonged here. What I believed in my heart and in my head and in every fiber of my being was that I was, in fact, invisible, that I was destined to disappear, and that abandonment for me, the abandonment that I experienced and the abandonment that I expected in life, that all equated to I will die. Owning that sense of loss, that sense of unworthiness and unwantedness was a real struggle. It really was painful. What kept me moving forward was the understanding that I was not that child anymore. I was an adult, but I didn't know what to do with that information. And this took time. It took hours, days, some weeks, and a whole summer of really spending time grappling with what it meant to me as a child to be abandoned was true. An abandoned child will struggle. An abandoned child will feel lost, will feel helpless, will die without help. But I'm not a child anymore. What does it mean now? And see, this is where the new knowledge had to come in. I'm not a child anymore. I'm an adult. A person can leave me. They can't abandon me. I have tools. I have resources. I can care for myself. My children and I, my parents, my friends, my family, the people in my world, we can struggle with our relationships. We can get closer and move farther apart. We can work through not knowing how to be with each other, but we don't abandon each other. I cannot be abandoned. I am not a child. I have the ability to care for myself. I can't be left by the curb to die. I can pick myself up. I can find food. I can feed myself. I can care for myself. I can dress myself, and I can put shelter over my head. And if I can't be abandoned, then these changes in my life, the people coming and going, the dynamic of loving people and not loving people, people loving me and not loving me will not kill me. It does not define my worth. It does not define my value. I will not disappear. This has been critical for me as I've moved through the last few years of writing my book, of experiencing, sharing my story with other people, of knowing that this wouldn't hit everyone the same way that I would like, and doing this video today and putting this YouTube channel together so that people can really interact and understand a little bit about where I'm coming from and maybe identify. In fact, many of the people who knew that I was doing the book, who knew that I was writing it and wanted to publish it, who knew that I was putting this YouTube channel together, would say over and over again, do you really want the world to reject you for these things? Do you want to take that risk? People would say, do you want your children to know this and your family to know this? And do you want your mother to know all these things about you? And I'd look them in the eye and I'd say, are you crazy? I don't want anybody to know these things. But that's the whole point. If I keep these things inside, if I keep them to myself, if I'm ashamed or nervous or scared about talking about these things and sharing these things, that's going to really echo what I've always known about myself, which is there's no value in what I think. There's no value in what I do, and therefore you will leave me. You will discard me. I will be of no worth, and I will die. And that's not how I operate today. It matters to me that I am here, that I have these relationships, that I care enough about myself to put myself out there and try my best to connect with other people. But no matter what happens, it's not an abandonment anymore. I'm still changing in this area. This is still a struggle for me, as I'm sure it is for many people. But I'm willing to share the story with you. It's risky, it hurts, it's scary, it's tough sometimes, but I know that we can do this together. I know that these are steps that we can take. If you have any thoughts on this, please put them in the comments down below. Subscribe wherever the button is. Let's keep in touch. Let's keep this moving forward. I really appreciate you taking the time today. Take care.